Moth Journal, Paul McMichael, Buchanan, Michigan, November 1988. The female Automaris Io of the family Saturnidae has the most amazing eye spots of all the moths I've collected. They are so startling and so piercing when the moth's yellow wings are open, like black rimmed eyes. The whole idea that moths have these incredible markings that are hidden when it is at rest, but then just explode into a sight if the moth takes flight or is threatened by any enemy, a bird or another insect, and suddenly there is this face-like image that is meant to confuse or scare away enemies. It is so astounding. And even many of the small plain moths have a version of an eye spot, or a distorted eye spot, an eye spot substitute. What other insect or other animal in all of nature has markings that intentionally create a small, wide-eyed face staring out at its enemies and making them unsure of who and what they are seeing? I am working almost entirely now at the lab after school. Mrs. Shelton has given me my own Mayday binocular microscope, and every few days she leaves a new book or article. Yesterday she asked me why Kathy never comes to the lab anymore, and I told her that we broke up. When she asked why, I told her that Kathy is the sort of girl who prefers butterflies to moths. Mrs. Shelton thought this was pretty funny. She understood. When I am finished with moths, I told her I'll get back to girls. When you are finished with moths, Mrs. Shelton said, beware of girls who want to collect you. Chapter 11, Canoes. All the next day, a Sunday, I tried to reach her. She wasn't answering her cell, and there was no answer at the cabin. In the mid-afternoon, I drove to Riverside, hoping to find one or both of them there. I'd rehearsed an apology for Abe and fantasized about arranging the moment when I would be alone again with Nora. When I saw Abe's Jeep in the Riverside parking lot and I heard Thor barking happily from the porch, I was ecstatic. But the office was empty. I wandered out to the gardens and checked the lodge, but found no one. Next, I headed down to Ridge Trail to the river. My best hope was to find Nora alone, but I fully expected to find her and Abe together at Eleanor's Point, where I would join them and make my peace with Abe. Eleanor's Point was deserted too, although when I looked around, I saw fresh boot prints to the riverbank and a muddy bowl where the old canoe usually sat. The canoe was gone! Abe and Nora were out on the river. My heart constricted painfully. I scanned the horizon for the familiar silver gleam of the canoe and realized, after a few moments of staring at the water, that what I was feeling was jealousy. Not a new emotion that summer, but this time I wasn't feeling jealous of Nora and her connection to Abe. I was feeling jealous of Abe's connection to Nora. I was so jealous that Abe had taken Nora out on the river for what would surely be her first time in a canoe that I could hardly breathe. I stood on the riverbank, trying my best to will them to come back, to include me. But there was no sound but a bobolink mocking me from a hollow dogwood on the opposite bank. On Monday morning, the first thing I noticed was her sunburn. The tops of her arms and her collarbone were striped with pink. Her freckles had multiplied and turned coppery. The small change in her appearance made me as crazy as if she'd shaved her head. As soon as we were alone, I hissed across the room at her. Why the hell didn't you call me yesterday? You knew I'd be stressing about Abe. Oh, he's not mad at you anymore, Pete, Nora assured me. He was over it the next morning. He got up and asked me if he could take me canoeing. He said it was a crime that I'd never been in a canoe before. We left early and we were gone all day. I turned my back on her, trying to get control of my feelings. Behind me, she kept talking. We rode all the way from Eleanor's Point to Abe's old neighborhood, Pete. I actually got to see the house my dad grew up in. I kept my back to her and sat behind my desk without speaking until I heard her sigh with disappointment. By the time I looked up, she'd given up on me and was exiting the office. In the doorway, she nearly collided with Bella, who was just coming in. Hey, watch where you're going, Bella scolded. Then she grinned at me, proud to have put Nora in her place. What is that girl's problem? She asked. But this time I had no answer for Bella, knowing that today the problem was me. This was the day that Bella and I had scheduled to set Candy free into the woods, and Bella wanted to get right to it. I'm worried about her, she confided as we headed out to the animal hospital. What if she's forgotten how to be a fox? I had no such worry. The animal's foreleg was completely healed, and she gained a little weight. Her fur was bright orange and thick, and her eyes were clear. She was ready. We settled her, still in her cage, into the back of my truck, and drove to the edge of the prairie, into a patch of wildflowers. Prairie roses, brown-eyed Susans, and day lilies. I opened the back end of the truck and invited Bella to unlatch the cage, which she did reluctantly. After a moment of sniffing at the opening of the cage, Candy scrambled out and took off, streaking across the prairie grass, a wild animal again, disappearing into the woods. I had done this before with fondlings, and it was a moment that never failed to thrill me. I put a hand on Bella's shoulder and was surprised to feel it shaking under my hand. Bella was crying, and it seemed out of character. One of the things I most appreciated about her was her no-nonsense approach to the natural world. The woods are Candy's real home, I reminded her. I don't know why I'm crying, she said. She wiped her eyes with the backs of her hands. I hate myself for crying. It's okay, Bella girl. You can cry. She shook her head, little fierce shakes. Scientists don't cry, she said. Then she lifted her chin and stiffened her jaw. She kept her face locked like this on the ride back to the visitor center, but I could tell from the way she was watching the scrub along the gravel road that she was looking for Candy. Nora was at the river, sitting elbows on knees in the docked canoe. She stood up when she saw me, stepping out of the canoe and bracing herself for whatever attitude I was bringing her. I started my apology from some distance away. I'm a jerk, I called out to her. I was jealous, because I wish it had been me taking you out for the first time in a canoe. Nora didn't answer, but her face registered surprise as I approached. I don't know what's gotten into me, Nora. I don't know if this thing that's happening means anything to you. We had that one kiss and everything, and it's okay if it didn't mean anything, but I just keep thinking about you. All the time. I think about you. As I came closer, Nora's expression became more intense, and her eyes grew brighter. I know I should have called you, she said. I know I should have. But I wasn't myself. I needed to think. There were so many things. Things Abe told me. She stopped speaking and held up one hand, pointing to the river. What did he tell you? I asked. I reached the place where she was standing and used her arms to tug her against me until the length of her was pressed against the length of me. More softly I asked, What did he tell you? My father's ashes are here, she said. He put it in his will. His ashes are in the river. Then she lowered her head to my shoulders, as if asking me to comfort her, something no girl had ever done with me before. I melted. I held her against me with all my strength. Then she put her arms on my back and tipped her face to me, so I was sure she was not going to stop me from kissing her. And this was how we came to our second kiss. And it had the same electricity as the first, except this time we had the sun on our backs and river sounds all around us, and I was not at all confused. But as I lifted my hands to her shoulders, she flinched. My sunburn, ouch, ouch. Sorry. My hands came back down slowly and found their way to the safe, hard triangle of her lower back as she lifted her arms to my shoulders. We clung in this new way, and our mouths came easily together again, until Nora pulled away and exclaimed, I don't know when I'm leaving, Pete. You're not leaving, I said, and covered her mouth with mine. When I came back to the office, I heard back and forth accusations, Christina and Bella squabbling in the kitchen. Their voices rose, becoming angrier, and then the two of them were full out arguing. Would you just leave me alone? Bella cried. Watch it, Christina shrieked. Then a crash, something shattering on the linoleum floor, and Christina cried, Oh, for the love of God, Bella, look at the mess you've made. Bella bolted from the kitchen and ran past me into the yard. I found Christina on her hands and knees at the coffee machine, picking up shards of blue glass from a wide circle of spilt cocoa. What happened? I asked, kneeling to help her. Oh, she dropped a whole mug of cocoa. Might have even burned her hand a little. I don't know. She wasn't being careful. She's impossible today. Now she'll be mad at me all afternoon. I think she was kind of upset about letting the fox go free. Should I see if she's okay? Better you than me, my friend. I found Bella in the animal hospital, sitting atop Candy's now empty cage and wearing a miserable scowl, her dark eyebrows in a line. I approached her uncertainly. Did you burn your hand? She was rubbing it. Who cares if I did? I do, Bella girl. Don't call me that. Her face was suddenly splotched with anger. I'm not a baby, and I'm so sick of this place, just really, really sick of it. She was crying again, her face scrunched in misery, making no effort this time to hide her tears. Bella, Candy will be okay. I'm not crying about a stupid fox, Bella wailed. Everything is wrong here. Everything is wrong because of her. I knew she meant Nora, and I felt a wave of disloyalty, because only a few weeks ago I would have agreed with her. But before I could find my voice, Bella cried, Nobody appreciates me. That isn't true. I appreciate you like crazy. Don't give me that bullshit, she said, surprising me with an adult curse. I saw what you did. I saw the way you two were kissing. You lied, Pete. You said you didn't even like her. Then I was at a complete loss for what to say. Bella had seen Nora and me basically making out in broad daylight. How could I even begin to explain? I guess I changed my mind about her, I stammered. Bella's face went several degrees wilder. Oh, yeah? Well, maybe I changed my mind about you. She whirled away and I tried to touch her shoulder, but she jerked herself free. I am not working here anymore. I quit. She left me with my mouth open and my arms hanging loosely at my sides. After a few moments, I heard someone outside, and Abe came wandering through the door, looking for birdseed. He greeted me with a little salute and a curt hello. I was relieved to see him. Sensible, silent Abe. The exact person I needed to hang with. The females around me were spinning out of control. I needed to be with my own kind. We were filling bird feeders half an hour later, seeds, nuggets, and suit. Just the kind of task I needed after Bella's outburst, familiar and uncomplicated. No need for words. But Abe surprised me by being unusually talkative. He wanted to describe his day of canoeing with Nora, blow by blow, hour by hour, the way a little kid would tell you about a birthday party. At one point, I interrupted impatiently. Abe, okay, I've been in a canoe before. It wasn't just being in a canoe, Abe insisted quietly. It was the memories, a landslide of memories, Pete. With every stroke of the oar, all these things I used to do with Paul. When we were kids, things I haven't let myself think about in a really long time. Good memories? Yeah, the good ones. From before things got so messed up. You mean before Nora's mom came? He nodded ruefully. But you know what I realized, Pete? It wasn't just Linda. I wasn't only fighting with Linda. That wouldn't have been so bad. The thing is, I was fighting with my brother, and the two of us, we had never fought about anything before that. He took care of me. He did everything for me. He was like... Abe closed his eyes and couldn't finish. Until he met Linda, I prompted. Until Linda. And then all of a sudden they were always together, and it was always the two of them every day, and pretty soon she wanted things to change. She made it clear she didn't want me around. She told Paul it would never work if I were part of the deal, and I just knew she had given him some kind of ultimatum, and I really hated her for it. He turned to me then and put an urgent hand on my arm. You can't ever tell Nora what I just said now about her mom. Abe, she already knows you and her mom didn't get along. Even Graham and Gramps know that. He shook his head. Promise me you won't ever repeat what I said to you just now. I promised. I had no problem with it. I liked that Abe was confiding in me on a new adult level. I was proud to have a secret between us, even if it was about hating someone. What did it matter that I couldn't tell Nora something she already knew? From the highest point of the ridge above Eleanor's Point, I spotted her walking along the river trail and called her name. Then I made my slippery way down the slope through dogwood and spice bushes to join her. Her smile at the sight of me was beautiful to see. I've been looking all over for you, she called. Christina and Bella were arguing like crazy in the office. I had to get out of there. And here I thought they were the perfect mother and daughter. Bella's mad at me, I reported glumly. Oh, she is not. She idolizes you. She knows about us, Nora. She saw us kissing at the river. Nora's jaw dropped. She saw us? What was she doing? Spying on us? She was probably just looking for me. She is my assistant. Oh, please, that little sneak. She was spying on us. Look, I don't want you to be mad at Bella, I said. She's just a kid. She can't help being jealous of you. Jealous of me? Nora scoffed. She's not jealous of me. Pete, she just doesn't like me. She's hated me since the day I arrived. She's just like my sister and her creepy little friends. She made a face, her fighter face, something I hadn't seen in a while. It changed the shape of her jaw and made her eyes flash. I really don't think, I began. Forget it. I don't care. I'm used to having people hate me. We walked in silence the rest of the way back to the visitor's center. I was still upset that I'd hurt Bella's feelings and upset that Nora didn't sympathize. But it was more than that. I was mystified. I felt like someone on the outside and wondered what it would be like to be so damn sure that the people around you hated you. What would that be like? What would it be like to have somebody in your own family hate you, and you hated them right back? It was so unknown to me. Gram and Gramps had always been so good to me, so easy, letting me decide what I needed and wanted and when. I knew I was lucky, but on the walk back, I didn't feel lucky. I felt ignorant and inexperienced and painfully different from the unlucky girl, braced for the next fight, ready for trouble, who walked so close beside me. That same evening, Nora phoned and asked me to drive over and get her out of the cabin, something I was thrilled to do. When I pulled up, she hopped into the truck before I could get out and pulled a hand-drawn map out of her purse. South of town, she commanded. Take Red Bud Trail and don't ask questions, just drive. I followed these and other mysterious directions, and we traveled to a small subdivision on the outskirts of Buchanan. Nora consulted her map and directed me through the curving streets to a small bungalow. I recognized Christina's car in the narrow driveway. As soon as we pulled in, Bella opened the front door and came slouching out, her expression sullen. Christina appeared beside her, waved to us from the doorway, and mouthed, "Thank you." "Are we taking Bella somewhere?" I asked, surprised. "Pizza," Nora announced. She got out and let Bella slide into the truck between us. It took us a few minutes to find the never-used middle seat belt, but once we had all buckled ourselves in, Bella gave me an icy stare. "I'm still quitting," she announced. "I still don't want you to," I said. She turned to Nora. "Did my mom ask you to do this?" "Your mom had nothing to do with it," Nora insisted. "We just wanted to do something special with you before you leave town." Bella's scowl deepened. She was unconvinced. "You guys just feel really guilty because I saw you, and you're afraid I'll tell everybody." "We do not feel guilty, and we don't care who you tell," Nora argued. "Tell whoever you want. Tell Abe, tell your mom. I don't care." "Geez, I would never tell her," Bella exclaimed, insulted. "She's in my face enough as it is," she added. "Anyway, she'd probably think it was great. She thinks you're so interesting because you're Abe's niece, and she says I should be glad you came to Riverside because of how it changed Abe. She says he's more like a normal human being now." This made me laugh, but when I looked at Nora, her expression was sad. "Maybe Nora will have the same effect on me," I suggested. "I doubt it," Bella grumbled. "Where are you guys taking me for pizza?" "We have a great place all picked out," I said, smiling at Nora over Bella's frizzy head, as though I had been in on the plan all along. We headed back into Buchanan. Nora asked me if I could stop at an office supply store in one of the new strip malls. "I need a notebook," she told us, "something with a cover." "You mean like a diary?" Bella asked. "I write in a diary every day. Mine has a lock on it so my mom won't read it." "My mom read my diary once," Nora repeated softly. "Right before I came here, in fact." "Was there bad stuff in it?" "Oh, yeah," she grimaced. "What do you need a diary now for?" Bella asked. "Oh, I know. To write about kissing Pete?" Nora smiled but shook her head. "I just want to write down some of the things I'm learning." "You mean so you won't forget everything when you go back to wherever it is you came from?" "Indianapolis," Nora replied softly. "So when are you going back? You've been here like forever." "She doesn't know when she's going back," I insisted protectively. "Will you be gone when I get back from visiting my dad?" Nora hesitated a moment and then said, "Probably." My heart sank. Nora stared out her window at the darkening sky. Bella turned to me. "Will you be really sad when she goes?" she asked. Then she answered her own question. "He will. He'll be really sad, but he won't cry." She turned to Nora. "Scientists never cry." "He'll miss me, though," Nora predicted. "And he'll miss you, too, Bella." "Will you really miss me, Pete?" Bella asked. "Big time." "You'll miss Nora more," she predicted. "You don't have to lie about it." I looked at Nora over Bella's head, and it hit me all in a rush what it would mean to have no Nora at Riverside, something I had wanted so much in the beginning. I drove the rest of the way in silence. half listening to Nora and Bella joking about Abe, joking about Christina, mock insults and explanations. What did it remind me of? Something I had seen on television or in the movies. Something about the way sisters act with each other. What did I know of sisters? What did I know about real families and their mysteries? Nora got her notebook, lined with pages with a cloth cover, and Bella forgave me and let me sit beside her in a booth at the pizza joint. We had a good pizza and good time. After we dropped Bella back at her house, I said to Nora, "Is it just me, or was what happened just now kind of out of character for you?" "You mean me being nice to Bella?" she asked. "Completely out of character. I can't even believe I thought of it. She's close to my sister's age, and I'm not exactly famous for being nice to her." "Why do you hate your sister, Nora? Has it just always been that way?" "It seems like it. We've always been so different. You'd have to meet her to understand. She actually looks like my mom in a miniature, really pretty with long curly brown hair and these huge brown eyes, and everyone treats her like a total princess. She has a great singing voice and she loves to perform in public, and all her grandparents and aunts and uncles think she's the most amazing kid ever born. And then there's me, the girl who nobody was ever quite sure where she came from, the girl nobody wanted around, the girl who was always in trouble." "Was it really that bad?" "Oh, sometimes. And when I came here, I honestly didn't care what happened to Carly. I was even hoping she'd finally have to suffer for a change, like I did." "And is she suffering?" "Oh God, she's just miserable. She called me crying a few days ago to tell me that things are pretty much over between her dad and my mom, and it turns out she's the only one who misses me. Carly, she actually misses me." Nora squeezed her eyes tightly shut and said, "Let's not talk about this anymore, okay?" "Okay, but it's too early to go home. What do you want to do?" "Something with you." "Of course something with me." "I know. Let's stay together until the moon comes out. Let's be in moonlight together. Moonlight on the river. You and me in a canoe in the moonlight, Pete. My first time canoeing after dark." "How does that sound?" I was thrilled. God, it's a perfect night for it. There'll be a ton of moonlight in a few hours. But what about Abe?" "What about Abe?" she echoed. I don't want Abe to wait up for me and worry again." She frowned, thinking, "Here's what we'll do. You take me home now, and I'll wait for Abe to go to bed and sneak out after. I'll ride my bike to Riverside and meet you at the visitor center at midnight." "Nora, are you sure you can get out without Abe hearing you?" "Trust me, I'm a pro at sneaking out at night." Which made me glance at her sideways, unsure that I liked hearing this. "Sneaking out to do what exactly?" "Don't ask." It had been quite a while since I'd been in the woods after midnight. In many ways, I experienced it that night as though for the first time. All of the sounds and smells, the night sky alive and buzzing, the trees full of creatures, the surface of the pond pulsing. We saw bats flying between the trees and watched as a fox and a possum crossed our path. In the distance, we could hear the splashing of animals leaving and returning to the river. I kept stopping on the trail to pull Nora close, to kiss her neck and nuzzle her hair and touch her warm skin. I felt like an animal myself, wildly alive, completely alert and happy. The canoe was sitting in a circle of moonlight as though expecting us. I stepped in first, and Nora followed me. We sat facing each other, and each took up a set of the old, battered oars. "My father used these oars," she whispered. Off we went. The river took us, became like a living thing all around us, awakening with movement. Nora's face went in and out of the shadow until in the middle of the river she sat in full moonlight, completely gorgeous. She threw her head back, holding fast to the oars, and laughed with joy. I drank in the curve of her chin, her long neck, her strong shoulders, and her urgent request came flying out of me, like our first kiss, unplanned and unstoppable. "Don't leave, Nora." This brought her attention back to me. "Oh, Pete," she said. "You know you don't want to," I said. "You know you'll miss me as much as I'll miss you. You can live with Abe. You can go to high school here. He'll say yes. All you have to do is ask him." Nora stopped rowing and lowered her head, getting upset. "You don't understand, Pete. There are things you don't know about me." Her tone startled me, because I'd been feeling so close to her. "What don't I know about you?" I pleaded. "Bad things happened, Pete, before I came here. Stuff between me and my mom. It got really, really screwed up." "I already know that. I know it was screwed up. She didn't even call you for weeks after you got here, and she never told you about Riverside. and she still hates Abe. Nora, these are all good reasons for you to just stay away from her. Her eyes flashed. That's easy for you to say. You don't have a mother. This hurt me. Graham is my mother, I said. I'm not talking about your Graham, she said. I'm talking about my mom, somebody who a few months ago wanted to kill me, and now she totally needs me, and I can't just cut her off and pretend she doesn't exist. She's out there somewhere. She's coming after me, and she's going to really need me. Now that it seems she's alone again. She hates to be alone. But you said you don't want to be like her, and you said being here has changed you. I said this urgently, because I realized in a flash that we had changed together. Something had taken hold of the two of us, something I didn't completely understand, but I could not bear the thought of it ending, and I was afraid that if Nora did leave Riverside, it would end. I might not see her again for a long time, maybe never. All that had happened this summer would fade, and she would become one of the things in my past I refused to look back on. Don't leave me, Nora, I pleaded, but she stayed silent, her head lowered so that I could not see her face, and just at the very moment, a fluttering shadow fell across the canoe. I looked up and saw in the moonlight a gigantic moth, a slow-moving, iridescent Luna, circling Nora's head. Look up, I whispered. She did. Then she gasped and followed the creature with her eyes, her mouth a silent O. We watched in silence for what seemed like forever. Atticus Luna flapped and fluttered away, searching for a mate. It's a sign, I whispered. I remembered something I'd read in one of Graham's lepidoptery books and spoke it aloud. The Potawatomi believed that moths were sent from the moon with messages from the dead. Nora began to row again. Was that a little too morbid for you? Nothing's too morbid for me anymore. But what if the message is a warning, from the river, from my father? This gave me a chill. What would he be warning us about? I wondered. About my mom coming to get revenge. And it will be my fault because of everything I stirred up coming here. Again, I thought of what Graham had said. She brought something only she could bring. Why does your mom still need revenge? I asked. There's something Abe's not telling us, Nora continued. There must be some other reason why he's afraid of my mom, something that's stuck deep inside of him. Nora, they just never liked each other, I insisted gently. Nora was shaking her head. There's more. I really think he's told us everything. People can't always tell everything, she argued. Sometimes they have to leave things out so that they can recover, start over, so that people will still be able to love them. There was something so pleading in her tone and her expression that I was afraid to press her about what she meant. I rowed us back to Eleanor's Point in silence, and I helped her out of the canoe without a word. On the path, we held hands tightly, but stayed separate in our silences. When I'd pulled the truck as far into Abe's driveway as I dared, I reached across the front seat, grabbed her shoulders, and kissed her, and she kissed me back, but it was a different kiss than we shared before. It was as though we were kissing each other across the great space that had opened between us. The things we weren't sure of, the things she wouldn't tell me, whatever was coming, and the possibility that she would leave.